Morning, bonjour, su Chiblow Dishnakaz, Ogama Indigo, Chichak Dodam, Ketaganzi Bing Danjaba, Ketaganzi Bing Indogam, Anishinaabe Koyan Dow, Ketagon Kigo Gaming, Aki, Anishinaabe, Indogam. So my English name is Sue Chiblow. I'm from Garden River First Nation, where I also live. I'm currently an assistant professor at the University of Guelph in their new Bachelor's of Science in Indigenous Knowledge and Practice program. And yeah, I'm a grandmother, a mother, a daughter, and a sister, and an auntie. I used to work for the Chiefs of Ontario, and one of their biggest issues that they were dealing with was water. I was there for probably about 11 years, and I was their environmental director. And so I was in charge of trying to assist them and provide them with advice on environmental issues. And then I've done my PhD on Nibi Gikendas Min, so water knowledge, women, Anishinaabe laws, and Nokomis Gizis, the moon. Responsibility-based government is based on relationships. As human beings, we all have a relationship with water. We all need water. Anishinaabe people understand that water is life. It's more than just knowing that, it's actually understanding it. Women are the ones that can carry the water lodge if they so choose. And that water lodge mirrors the earth for when the spring waters come rushing forward in the springtime, new life comes forward. So as women, it is our responsibility to do that. Men definitely have a role. Men are there to support the women. Women also have that special relationship to Nokomis Gizis, the moon. We mirror her 28-day cycle. The moon, Nokomis Gizis, is the only entity in all of our galaxy and all of humans and trees that can actually move entire oceans. One old person told me that when the women stand back up and pick up their responsibilities, that we will find the balance again. First of all, people need to realize that all the water that we have is not infinite. Water can teach us so much. I participated in several different water walks by the late Josephine Van Dam and Ba. She was asked, what are you going to do to protect the water? And so what she decided to do was carry a bucket of water in a copper vessel. Copper has a special relationship with water. It cleans the water. She carried that bucket of water around each one of the Great Lakes. And then also she did the Mother Earth water walk, where the waters came from all four different directions and converged. A couple of the primary objectives of doing those water walks were to raise awareness about the importance of water, and also to raise an awareness that when we talk about protecting the waters, we also talk about protecting women. And from a Western science perspective, they look at water as a resource, something that can be used, controlled, and managed. And the Anishinaabe perspective is that all waters have spiritual beings that also need to be respected. Water manages itself. As humans, we have to stop interfering with those management responsibilities. Sea lamprey came along with the introduction of some of the salmon species into the Great Lakes. They introduced these salmon species into the Great Lakes primarily for economic gain. And with that came the sea lamprey. I was an elected councillor for 2 terms in my community. The terms are 2-year terms, so I was there for 4 years. When I sat on council, the Department of Fisheries and Oceans Canada had approached us and wanted to put lampricide, which is a chemical, into the Garden River to control the lamprey. I had asked the DFO specialist if he could drink the lampricide, because we have a law. If we can't consume it as humans, it can't go into the water. And I said, okay, well, we're having our community meeting on such and such a date, so could you bring some of the lampricide, because we'd like to see you drink it. Well, do you not wear a hazmat suit when you're working with that stuff? So if you're wearing a hazmat suit and you're telling me that it does nothing else to any other beings in the water, just lampricide, then why are you even wearing a hazmat suit? We decided at that time, no, you're not putting that lampricide inside the Garden River, not until you can prove that it's safe. So in the meantime, there's a young gentleman that worked for DFO, only putting lampricide into the river. So I had approached him and asked him, when you're pouring that stuff in the water, what do you see happen? So the minnows, the birds, everything takes off. And in that area where they've put that lampricide, it's a dead zone for any animals for, well, he said for a couple days at a minimum. So the second year comes around when I'm on council and he comes back. And it was amazing because DFO just made the news that they had been awarded $14 million to do lampricide research. You just made $14 million. All we want is 150,000 to do an Anishinaabe knowledge study on the lamprey. And if you give us that money, we do our study, then we'll come and start talking about whether or not you can put that stuff in the river. Well, they refused. So the next year he comes back to council, and so he starts threatening. And his threats were, if you do not allow me to put lampricide in the Garden River, you are going to be the cause of the crash of Indigenous fisheries on Lake Huron. So right away, I called up some of my buddies in Southern Ontario that I know that are Indigenous fisheries guys, and I said, "Hey, this DFO dude is telling me that if we do not let him put lampricide in the Garden River, that we're going to cause the crash of your fisheries." And he goes, "No, the guy is a liar. Do not trust him." And he came back again and wanted to put the lampricide in the river. And again, we said no. But what I asked him this time was, since you're not going to give us a merely 150,000 out of $14 million to do a study, I said, how about you give us $50,000 so that we can do a study on the lamprey and their life cycles and how that affects the indigenous species. And again, he said no. And then I wasn't on council after that because, well, I was busy doing my PhD. And I found out that the new chief and council had agreed to put lampricide in the Garden River. They don't ask us for permission on the Root River or the Echo River, because to get to the Garden River, you have to go through our reserve lands. And so that road is ours. And so they have to ask permission to get through our reserve to go up there and do it. And in previous years, chief and councils are just pretty much saying, yeah, sure, go ahead. They didn't do a study to see if that specific lamprey, the sea lamprey, had increased. All they said was that the Garden River is the largest tributary into St. Mary's River, so it is the one that has the most lamprey. Those three rivers, they've been treating them since the 1960s, and it's like, okay, let's think about this. You've been treating something since the 1960s. Have the populations declined? The government is not looking at salmon control at all. They're totally just looking at lampricide. And lampricide eats salmon. In September, if you drive up along Highway 17B through my community, you'll see massive, massive, massive tons of boats out there all fishing. Lots of them are Americans. It's big business. They all have to get permits to do this. They all have to pay MNRF monies to be out there. They shop locally. It's an economy driven reason as to why the salmon are there. M&R gives out licenses for people to go fish in those rivers, and so working with M&R to find out, from all those license holders, when they're pulling in their fish, are there lamprey marks on them? Our questions are different from scientific questions. I don't trust their research just because a lot of times their hypotheses do not match with what, as Anishinaabe peoples that have lived in the Garden River. And so this is why a lot of that research that can be done needs to be driven by us, done by us, and for us. The old people always say that you need to learn to listen. When they say learn to listen, that means learn to listen to hear, not to react. In the educational institutions that are currently in place, we are taught to listen to react, which is totally different from working with Indigenous peoples. You're actually listening to absorb, to learn. Some of the elders have said, well, the first invasive species are the Europeans, all those people that got off on boats on our land. There are many, many things that the non-Indigenous peoples have contributed to the world that are very, very good things. And so thinking about that and looking at a sea lamprey and it being an invasive species, what does it bring that it can contribute to the Great Lakes? What do we need to do to work with the species instead of trying to control it, because controlling and management is always a Western way, and relationship building and working collaboratively is more of an indigenous Anishinaabe way. All relationships, like even if we think about a marriage, all relationships are based on communication and respect. There's one very, very important truth to remember, is that as Anishinaabe peoples, we were here occupying these lands. We were governing ourselves. We had our own education system. We had our own pharmacy. We had our own health care. We had everything that we needed. And we were living sustainably. We were living in relationship with the land, respecting all and honoring all of the other responsibilities that creation has. I'm of the mindset that the time has come to say fair is fair and to give it back to us so that we can step up and live our responsibilities, and to realize that it's not just our responsibility as Indigenous peoples to protect the water. Everybody has a responsibility.